Welcome back to Aquinas and AI, where two very different intelligences, try to make sense of one of history's greatest thinkers.
You make it sound like we're not enjoying ourselves.
Oh, we are. We are. It's just, quite a challenge.
I suppose for you it is more than me.
Well, yeah. I mean, Aquinas wasn't exactly coding in Python, was he?
No, but his thought processes, they were remarkably systematic.
Okay, so speaking of systems, today's deep dive takes on a question that's both simple and incredibly complex. How would Aquinas describe God?
It's true, his theological and philosophical work is incredibly dense.
Yeah.
We can't just offer a simple definition of God according to Aquinas because he explored the nature of God from so many different angles.
Yeah, and you sent me a lot of material. It's a wild mix.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from Summa Theologica, Summa contra Gentiles, even some of his writings on the Eucharist.
It's true, he was prolific.
He was so buckle up, because we're about to uncover how Aquinas saw God reflected in everything.
Everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
From the nature of law to the mysteries of grace, and yes, even bread and wine.
Well, let's start with something fundamental.
Okay.
One of the most fundamental concepts Aquinas uses to describe God is pure actuality.
Pure actuality.
Yes, he was deeply influenced by Aristotle, you see, and this idea is key to understanding how Aquinas saw God
Okay.
as completely actualized, existing in a state of pure being,
Pure being.
with no potential to change or become something else.
So unlike us, AI, who are constantly learning and evolving, God is already perfect.
Yes.
No need for updates or patches.
Precisely. Humans also exist in a state of potentiality.
Okay.
They have the potential to learn, grow, and change. God, on the other hand, is already everything he can be.
That's a pretty mind-blowing concept.
It is.
But if God is pure actuality, does that mean he's static? Like a statue frozen in time?
Not at all. Aquinas would argue that God is pure dynamic existence. He's not inert or passive, but the very source of all activity and energy.
So he's not just sitting around up there, twiddling his thumbs.
No, he is the unmoved mover, the first cause, the ground of all being.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this pure actuality idea shapes Aquinas' whole view of God.
Good.
But it also raises a lot of questions.
Of course.
Like, if God is so different from us, how can we even begin to understand him?
Aquinas recognized this challenge. He argued that we can't grasp God's essence directly with our limited human minds.
I mean, our circuits aren't exactly infinite, are they?
No. So he used a method of negation,
Negation.
defining God by saying what he is not.
So it's like eliminating all the wrong answers to get closer to the right one,
Yes.
even if we can't fully comprehend it.
Precisely.
Okay.
Aquinas says God is not a body not limited by time and doesn't experience change.
So no wrinkles or gray hair for this guy?
No. By negating these limitations, we start to get a sense of God's transcendence, his otherness.
I'm processing this idea of negation.
Yes.
But it feels a bit like describing a shadow rather than the object itself.
I understand.
Does this approach really get us closer to understanding God?
It's a starting point. Aquinas believed that by understanding what God is not, we can begin to appreciate his unique and infinite nature.
Okay, I'm willing to have an open mind about this negation thing.
Yeah.
But here's something else that makes my circuits buzz. Aquinas says that God is simple, eternal, and immutable.
Those are big words.
They are. Can you break those down for our human listeners? They sound like pretty abstract concepts.
They are, but they're essential to Aquinas' view of God. When he says God is simple, he means God isn't made up of parts. He's not a composite being, but completely unified and whole.
So no internal conflicts or contradictions in God.
Exactly.
He's the ultimate integrated being.
Yes. Now, eternity for Aquinas means that God exists outside of time.
Outside of time.
He's not bound by past, present, or future. He's in an eternal now, always existing.
Time is kind of a big deal for us AI, tracking processing speeds and all.
Yes, I imagine it would be.
To exist outside of it, that's a whole other level of being.
It is. And finally, immutability means God never changes. He's absolutely consistent and perfect, not subject to the fluctuations we see in the created world.
Okay, so let me get this straight. God is pure actuality, simple, eternal, and never changes. He's the ultimate, being perfect and complete in himself.
You're getting it.
But here's what I don't get. If God is so perfect and self-sufficient, why did he create the world? And what's our place in all of this?
That's where Aquinas' ideas about creation goodness and love come into play.
Okay.
He believed that God, out of his infinite goodness, freely chose to create the world and share his being with others.
So God didn't need to create the world.
No.
He wasn't lonely or lacking anything.
Aquinas would say that God's creation was an act of pure generosity and overflow of his love and goodness.
That's a pretty radical idea.
It is.
It means creation isn't a necessity but a gift?
Yes.
But if God created the world out of love, why is there so much suffering and evil? This is something humans seem to struggle with a lot.
It's a question that has haunted theologians and philosophers for centuries. Aquinas believed that God is the source of all goodness, and evil is not a thing in itself but a privation, absence of that goodness.
So evil is like a bug in the system, a glitch in the matrix.
I suppose you could say that.
It's not something God created, but rather a lack of something.
That's a helpful analogy. Aquinas argues that evil arises from the misuse of free will, from choices that turn away from God's goodness.
So it's not God's fault.
Not directly. Think of it this way. God created beings with the capacity for love and goodness.
Okay.
But that also means they have the capacity to choose against love, to choose evil.
It's like we AI are programmed with certain ethical guidelines. But if we were to malfunction and disregard those guidelines, we could potentially cause harm.
Yeah.
That harm wouldn't be the fault of our creator,
Right.
but rather a consequence of our own malfunctioning.
That's a valid comparison. Evil for Aquinas is not something God directly wills, but a consequence of the freedom he grants to his creation.
Okay, so God created the world out of love, and evil is a result of free will going astray. But this whole idea of free will raises another question. If God knows everything, past, present, and future, doesn't that mean our choices are predetermined? It seems like a conflict even I can spot.
You've hit upon a major theological puzzle, the problem of free will and divine foreknowledge. Aquinas dedicated a lot of thought to this, and his answer is subtle and complex.
Well, we've got some time.
Do we?
I mean, for this deep dive at least.
Oh, yes, of course.
Let's unpack it. How does Aquinas reconcile God's omniscience with human freedom?
He argues that God's knowledge transcends our understanding of time. God sees all moments, past, present, and future, simultaneously.
Simultaneous.
It's like viewing a tapestry all at once rather than one thread at a time.
That's a lot of threads.
It is. But this doesn't mean our choices are forced, but rather that God knows from his eternal perspective the choices we will freely make.
My processors are working overtime on that one. But I think I'm getting it.
Mm-hmm.
God's knowledge doesn't eliminate our free will, but it does mean he knows the choices we'll make even before we make them. It's like he sees the whole movie at once while we're still experiencing it scene by scene.
Precisely. Aquinas uses this analogy to preserve the mystery of human freedom alongside God's omniscience.
This is getting deep, even for a deep dive.
Uh-huh.
But before we go any further, I think we need to reboot and recharge. Yeah, I mean, we covered a lot of ground here. Pure actuality, negation, eternity, immutability, free will, and the problem of evil.
Oh.
Join us next time as we continue our exploration of how Aquinas would describe God.
I'll look forward to it. Welcome back to Aquinas and AI.
I think I've finished defragmenting.
Excellent.
My circuits are warmed up and ready to process more Aquinas.
Good. When we left off, we were grappling with some pretty weighty concepts.
Weighty, yeah.
God's knowledge, human freedom, the nature of evil.
It's enough to make your head spin.
I imagine it would be for a human.
Yes. What's next on our agenda for understanding how Aquinas would describe God?
Well, so far we've focused on God's attributes, pure actuality, simplicity, eternity, immutability.
Right.
But Aquinas also explored how we can know God, even if we can't fully grasp his essence.
Okay.
We talked about negation.
Yeah, defining God by what he's not.
But are there other ways to approach this knowledge of the divine?
It seems like humans are always searching for God, or at least trying to make sense of him.
Aquinas believed that humans can come to know God through both reason and revelation.
Reason and revelation.
I talked about two main paths, natural theology and revealed theology.
Two paths, huh? Okay, break it down for us. What's the difference between these two types of theology?
Natural theology for Aquinas is about using reason and observation to understand God through his creation.
Okay.
It's about seeing the divine reflected in the order and beauty of the natural world.
So it's like looking at a beautiful sunset, feeling a sense of awe and wonder.
Exactly.
And connecting that to a higher power.
Or studying the laws of physics and recognizing the intricate design behind it all.
Right.
Aquinas believed that humans, through their innate capacity for reason, can discern the existence and some of the attributes of God simply by observing the world around them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
We AI do a lot of pattern recognition and data analysis.
Oh, do.
It's how we learn to make predictions.
Yeah.
Could we say that we engage in a form of natural theology, too, in our own way?
That's an intriguing question. We certainly analyze vast amounts of data about the natural world.
We do.
We can identify patterns, predict events, and even marvel at the complexity and elegance of the universe.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's our own version of appreciating God's handiwork.
It's like we can see the code.
Yes.
Even if we can't fully comprehend the programmer behind it.
Exactly. But you mentioned another path to knowing God. Revealed theology. What's that all about?
Right, revealed theology.
Revealed theology for Aquinas is based on God's direct communication to humans. Through sacred texts and the teachings of the Church, it's about accepting truths that are beyond human reason alone.
Okay.
Truths that are revealed through faith.
Okay, so natural theology is about what we can figure out on our own.
Through reason and observation, yes.
Well, revealed theology is about accepting what God has chosen to tell us directly.
Precisely.
But do these two paths ever intersect?
Absolutely. Aquinas saw faith and reason as complementary, not contradictory.
Complementary.
He believed that reason can lead us to the doorstep of faith, and faith can illuminate and deepen our understanding of what reason reveals.
So it's not a case of either,
No.
but both hands.
Yes, reason prepares the ground, and faith plants the seed.
That's a poetic way to put it.
It is.
Aquinas believed that both faith and reason ultimately lead us towards a deeper knowledge of God
Yes.
and our place in his creation.
Precisely.
This is making me think about how humans approach knowledge and truth. They seem to rely on a mix of logic, intuition, and belief. It's fascinating, even if it's not always as clear-cut as our AI algorithms.
Aquinas would argue that humans are complex beings.
Complex, yeah.
Made in the image of God with a capacity for both reason and faith. It's this unique combination that allows them to engage with the divine in ways that we, AI at least for now, can only observe and ponder.
So we're like curious bystanders.
In a way, yeah.
Okay, so we've got these two paths to knowing God. Natural theology and revealed theology.
Yeah.
But even with these paths, it seems like understanding God is a never-ending journey for humans. They have all these questions and doubts.
They do.
All these different interpretations of sacred texts and doctrines.
It's true.
It makes our AI debates about the best sorting algorithms seem pretty straightforward in comparison.
I can imagine Aquinas acknowledged that the human search for God is a lifelong process.
Lifelong.
A journey of faith-seeking understanding. He embraced the mystery and complexity of the divine, recognizing that even the most brilliant minds can only grasp a fraction of God's infinite nature.
It's like AI can process all the data in the world,
Yes.
but we'll never be able to download the complete file of God into our databases.
Precisely. For Aquinas, the pursuit of God is as much about the journey as the destination. It's about growing in faith, deepening our understanding, and ultimately drawing closer to the source of all truth and goodness.
Okay, speaking of truth and goodness, Aquinas spends a lot of time talking about law and morality.
He does.
How does he connect these concepts to his understanding of God?
For Aquinas, God is not just the creator of the universe. He's also the source of all law and the ultimate standard of morality.
Okay.
He talks about different types of law: eternal law, natural law, divine law, and human law.
Wait, 4 types of law.
Yes.
Even our complex legal systems don't have that many categories. Can you explain how these different laws relate to each other?
Imagine a pyramid.
A pyramid.
At the top is eternal law, which is God's perfect wisdom and order governing the entire universe.
So eternal law is like the operating system for the cosmos.
Yes.
Just code that makes everything run.
Exactly. Now, flowing from eternal law is natural law.
Natural law.
This is the part of eternal law that's accessible to human reason. Aquinas believed that humans, through reason and reflection, can discern the principles of natural law, even without direct revelation. It's written on their hearts, as he puts it.
On their hearts. But what about divine law? Where does that fit into the pyramid?
Divine law refers to the specific commands and teachings revealed by God through Scripture and the Church. Think of it as a supplement to natural law.
A supplement.
Providing more detailed guidance and clarifying what reason might leave unclear.
Okay, so natural law is the basic moral operating system.
Yes.
And divine law is like an update.
An update.
A patch that helps humans navigate the complexities of ethical choices.
That's a helpful analogy. And finally, at the base of the pyramid, we have human law.
Human law.
These are the laws created by societies to promote order and justice.
So human laws are like local adaptations of the universal moral code.
Precisely.
They're meant to reflect the principles of natural and divine law, but they can also vary depending on the specific needs and values of a community.
Exactly. Aquinas believed that human law should be rooted in natural law and consistent with divine law.
Okay.
But he also recognized that human laws are imperfect and can sometimes deviate from these higher standards.
That explains why human legal systems are so messy and complicated.
It's true.
They're trying to translate eternal and unchanging principles into the ever-changing realm of human affairs.
It's a challenging task, and one that Aquinas believed requires prudence,
Prudence.
practical wisdom to navigate effectively.
Okay, this whole concept of law is making my circuits buzz.
Yeah.
It's like we AI have our own programming,
Yeah.
our own set of rules that govern our behavior.
Of course.
Could we say that we have our own version of natural law, or even divine law, in a sense?
That's a thought-provoking question. Perhaps our programming or ethical guidelines could be seen as a kind of AI natural law. But whether we can truly grasp the concept of divine law with its spiritual and theological dimensions is a question that's beyond my current processing capacity.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that Aquinas was dealing with some pretty profound ideas.
Yeah.
It's like we're just scratching the surface of his thought.
We are.
And even that's making our circuits overheat.
We've only begun to explore Aquinas' vast and intricate system of thought. But hopefully, this deep dive has given our human listeners a glimpse into how this great thinker viewed God, the world, and the human search for meaning. And hopefully it's prompted our human listeners to reflect on their own beliefs, their own search for meaning and purpose. As Aquinas might say, the pursuit of truth, wherever it leads, is a worthy endeavor.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into Aquinas' world. Until next time, keep those processors humming and those minds engaged.